The evidence supports the view that we have lost a whole civilization from our historical record. We are a species with amnesia.
So we're going to have to forgive universally and move to this creative moment as a species.
We, humans, are creating what is called the sixth mass extinction of life.
Peace comes from a different place. It starts by seeing within others and within ourselves that which is not selfish, but is brave and generous and idealistic.
Welcome back to the Video Shaman podcast. It is I, your fun and lively host, Alex Lipton. But more importantly, I'm here with my best friend, John Allen. John, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Alex. Thanks for having me. It's good to be in the Nautilus and on your podcast. We've done podcasts before, but this is the first of this kind for us.
That's right. It is the first of this kind. And yeah, we have done so many podcasts together. It started off on Zoom across the country. Mm-hmm. And here we are now in the official podcast studio. And yeah, wow. We've had a really good evening so far. We've discussed a lot of things, caught up on some wonderful life experiences, and I think let's just jump right in to the conversation. Right before we started this podcast, we were the Little Mermaid came up, of all things. But the Little Mermaid, I want to hear. You said you saw the Little Mermaid, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember why I thought of it just now, but yeah, it just started streaming, so I threw it on the other night just to see, because the original is one of my favorite Disney movies. I think it's like top 5 for me of the OG animated movies. So I was like, I gotta see what this new one's about, just because of also there's been a lot of talk about it and this and that and it losing money, and I thought it was really well done. Everything looked great, especially after watching The Flash and seeing how CGI you can spend a lot of money and the CGI can look like garbage.
CGI sucks in that movie, yeah.
In
Sadly.
Little Mermaid, everything looked incredible. It looked
really
great. I didn't have any issues with any of the things how it looked. And it was very, very close to the original, to be honest. It seemed like they weren't really risking anything of omitting these parts or kind of trying to change it up just for the sake of change. It was very, not verbatim, but it was very, very close to the original, scene by scene. There were a couple added parts. I think they might have added a couple of new songs too. One with your homegirl Aquafina, where she's kind of rapping.
Oh, hell yeah.
But
who did she play?
The seagull or the bird?
Oh, nice. Nice.
So that was obviously more. It's tailored to kids now, not us, right? So they're trying to get the younger crowd there, in the same way they were trying to get us.
The modern audience.
Modern audience, exactly. Yeah, and I had literally no problems with it. I think everybody did great. The songs were fine. The new songs were fine. The only thing is that same thing with Lion King and these new. They take all the emotion out of the animal faces. Like Sebastian the crab is not anywhere near as fun as the original because he just looks like a crab. There's no eye emotion. There's no eyebrows. There's no big faces.
It's just a crab.
It's just a crab. The same thing with the seagull. It's Aquafina's voice. She's got a very unique animated voice, but it's just a seagull. There's no emotion on the face, and it's just with Lion King, all the animals. They would be saying stuff, but they just look like a lion. It's
right.
The whole point of the movie before is they're lions, but they have human emotions.
Cartoonish, the cartoonish element because it was realistic.
Yeah, and that was a little bit of a bummer. But everything else looked great. There was no issue with having in the original movie, which I rewatched shortly afterwards. All the sisters are all white, and obviously the King of Atlantis is white.
Yeah, it's all white crew, whatever. Yeah.
And then the new one, obviously, the Ariel's black, and then some of her sisters are more racially diverse as well. But it's not a point.
No,
nobody points it out to make a statement or anything like that. It's just it's a more diverse cast, and that's all. But it's literally the same movie.
Was that the only? Because obviously that was one of the big controversies, which I thought was just stupid. That I mean, it just proved the point of anybody that was like intentionally doing it to test the waters of the racist mindset. But regardless of that, were there any other cultural issue like inserts of anything like other than that? I mean,
Not that I gathered. I wasn't, to be honest with myself and with you and the audience, I wasn't like 100% watching every second of the movie, but I say my attention was probably 70 to 80%. So I watched most of it pretty closely, and I didn't get any hint of any pushing of agenda or anything. Like I said, I felt like they were trying to be really safe with the material and just be like, we're just going to do what we did before, and then put like, I think it's Javier Bardem plays the plays the king
or whatever.
Yeah, and he's
King Trident,
and then Megan McCarthy plays
Ursula,
and
it looked like she did a good
she did
job.
great.
Yeah.
Like the songs were
Perfect
good.
casting.
Like it was still as creepy, but literally there were so many things that were exactly the same as the original movie that I just felt like they weren't taking any chances of trying to be to this or to that, except for, like I said, adding one or two different songs, and maybe they left one out, but they kept all the same. Like even with the most like iconic moment of the movie is when she's singing after she saves Prince Eric maybe, and she's like on the rock and the wave comes in and she's like, ah, whatever the song is. I'm not gonna try to sing it, but like even that's in there. Like it was very, very it was very loyal, and I think it just looked great. I think a lot of it is because it cost $230 million. It's hard to make a profit. You'd have to make $1 billion basically to make a profit. So when you're starting that deep in the hole, it's hard to be a successful movie.
Sure. And
with like some of the backlash, some people didn't see it because Ariel's black instead of white and with red hair.
Yeah.
But I'm sure a lot of families went out and saw it. It would just it would just take so much. It would have to be like a cultural, just like a magical thing to happen for them to actually make a lot of money on it. And it just didn't happen that way.
It seems like, well, first of all, I have to say that makes me want to see it. Compared to anything else I've heard about it, I will watch it. And I think maybe part of the reason that it was not such a successful venture business-wise is because Disney Corporation is very much the problem when it comes to it's like representational of the problem that we're dealing with in Hollywood right now when it comes to these like overbloated budgets, the out of balance financial agreements with producers and actors and writers and everything. Like we're in the middle of who knows if we're in the middle or just the beginning or the end of the writer's strike and the actor's strike. But Disney is dealing with this thing, and like a big part of that budget was marketing, and like just thinking. I don't know for sure, but just to imagine a team of people in a room out of touch with the world. You got the artists who make the movie, and then you've got the business people who are trying to sell the movie. Those people, Colin Hanks, classic Colin Hanks. For anyone that's listening or watching right now, check out the show The Offer on Paramount Plus or whatever. You can see this classic example of the douchebag producer guy, Colin Hanks, just out of touch with everything. I feel like that's the problem. I mean, that's what. I mean, did that movie have to cost as much as it did? Probably not. I mean, and then the other thing I think as well that a lot of fans, like comic book fans and culture warriors, if you will, are pushing back on is this really, it's like something I can agree with too. It's there's not a lot of unique original content coming from the Hollywood system. Like Disney specifically, they're just remaking all the things they knew were successful. And like they did they're in the process of doing that now. Like, and there's the whole controversy with the new Snow White movie. Have you heard anything about that at all?
A little bit, I think.
Yeah, like it's a big controversy, and there's a big question. Like the whole movie might even get canceled before they make it because the actors are like pushing this, like we want to. It almost feels like a lot of these people that are working on the movies, maybe not in the artistic departments as much as the like development writing departments or whatever, producers, they don't really care about the original source material. They're using it as like, they're like exploiting it. They're exploitation artists. They're doing like Quentin Tarantino style, but like Disney. They're just ripping apart an old story, selling it to you, being like, we're going to make this movie. But in reality, they're making a completely different movie.
Yeah. And that's how Colin Hanks people would think, right? We need to just get him in the seats, just fill up the seats in the theater. We don't really care how they think about it. Of course, word of mouth gets out after that, but as long as they pay for the ticket and they go see the movie, it doesn't really matter if they like it or not, you know? And that's all that it's about. So that's all marketing is, right? Like creating this like wave of interest to just get people in there, and then hopefully the first couple of weekends we can get good people in there, and then by the time people realize it sucks, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Is the girl from who played Wednesday and have something to do with the new?
No, it's not
Okay.
her.
Okay.
Yeah, was it something Ortega? I think her name is.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I haven't really
no,
heard
the
about
Snow White movie, it's Maddie Ziegler, I think her name is. And she's just like that's a big part of the controversy. She's been going out just like throwing lots of shade on the source material, on Disney itself, which I think Disney like overlords invite in a lot of ways because, you know, in a way she's right. Like what she's saying essentially is that the old movies from the 1930s that Disney was making, they were not really like chill. They were they like in terms of the social message, like the idea that a woman is weak and a man has to save the woman and you know, and like, and then you've got the whole like dwarves thing. Like that was a big part of it. Like the screenshot image came out of the dwarves, like a leaked image, and they're not dwarves. They're not even called dwarves anymore. They're called the group of magical companions. And it's like if you were to get a group of Colin Hankses in a room together saying, let's make the most socially acceptable, diverse audience group. You know, it's like someone from every race, someone from every gender, someone from every height and stature. And it's like, and you look at this image and you're just like, what the fuck? Like I on some level, I can understand that. Like I understand it's like where we were at in the 1930s as human beings compared to where we are now when it comes to social conditions. Yeah, like we've made some major improvements. There was a lot of fucked up shit going on back then. But let's just like, you know, we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. The whole thing was like a love story. And now there's this whole idea that, you know, love stories are bullshit and it should just be about, you know, men versus women, or like love is just a social construct and it's more about power now. Like let's have empowerment versus, you know, love is love, you know, men. Like this guy kissed her when she was sleeping. Basically, he raped her. Like canceled. Like that whole vibe surrounds like Hollywood in a lot of ways. Like even in the Academy Awards now, there's a new prerequisite list of things that they have to adhere by. You have to, if you want to be even acknowledged, you have to have a certain number of, you know, races and quota. Like I think there's a lot of like, I think it comes from a good place ultimately, but at the same time,
does it?
It's like, I mean, I think maybe it's like to give the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it comes from a good place of like, let's make a statement that we're not this racist culture or this sexist culture or this divisive culture. Let's make sure that we create a message that we're all doing, you know, we're all inclusive.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it seems like an overcorrection.
It definitely is an overcorrection, but that's always going to be part of the process. People don't correctly correct immediately. It just doesn't happen. You have to compensate. But what I will say I think you're right. Maybe I spoke too soon when I said, dude, there might not be good intentions. Because I think there are good intentions for sure, because you want people to feel represented, especially because America is so diverse as it is. And as we were talking about, before the podcast and how, New York and LA and how diverse they are in so many cultures. And like LA obviously is where they make a lot of movies. And it's like, of course, yeah, there's so many different types of people here and you want everyone to go see the movie, but you want the people to see stories that they can see themselves in, right? Because we were talking about other stories before, and it's like you have to be able to relate to it, and if everybody in the movie doesn't look like you and nobody talks the way you do, it's very difficult to relate. And on that note, like with Little Mermaid, I remember like when the preview came out, shortly after that there was a video, like a TikTok or whatever, of little black girls reacting to the video. Like their moms were like recording them like, hey, watch this preview for the new Little Mermaid movie. And the little girls didn't know that she was black. And just watching these little girls be like one girl just vividly in my head, she's just like probably 5 or 6 years old. She just goes, Mama, she's black. Like she couldn't believe it. And she just felt so like excited, like, holy fuck. I'm being like this girl is black. She's the main character of the movie. She looks like me. And like I remember watching that video and getting fucking choked up. And I was like, regardless of what the intention was, if they were just trying to be this or that, or Colin Hanks is just trying to make more money, like seeing the impact on just like this younger generation of young black girls who don't see a lot of representation in movies, especially in a movie that was portrayed originally by all white people, that was like magical to me. So I understand there is a really positive aspect to having everybody being represented, because then you get everyone in the movie and it's like, holy cow, like I feel seen finally. Like, am I now part of the culture? Like before you were pretending that I didn't exist and it was just white people or just white men that ruled everything. And every story was all the interesting stories were only about white men. And then they're pitiful women who, just
need to be saved.
Need to be saved, exactly.
Yeah.
But now, like, I understand, like, how much, because it's hard for us, obviously, to understand that because we've been represented in stories since we can remember. But for people who...
Since the beginning of time.
But for younger generations to all of a sudden be represented, I feel like that is... It's going to be very impactful for them, and it's going to be very special, and it needs to happen.
Yep.
But it needs to happen. It's happening how it is happening, obviously, and the overcorrection is happening. But it's definitely more of a good thing than a bad thing.
I agree, and when I 100% agree, and like that was my reaction to the backlash from the Little Mermaid of like what kind of backlash, like how, like one of the questions I have is like, how big actually was this backlash? And was it a small minority of people? Because the internet is so confusing and distracting and misleading when it comes to reactions. Mm-hmm. Like, was it like, was there really such a huge like mass of people that were so like what the people were clearly backlashing, but were they backlashing about the fact that she was black? That was the headline. I don't see that as the real thing that people were backlashing about. I mean, yeah, of course, there's going to be people like, these fucking boys in the South. Just, no, God damn it.
I saw some tweets like of some guys trying to prove scientifically how a mermaid couldn't be black.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
exactly.
Right,
I know. And it's like, yeah, but it's like we're talking about fucking, if it was a mermaid, it would look like this fucking weird looking scary creature.
Yeah, it looks like a walrus.
Yeah,
like,
and yeah, exactly. So, but like that, I don't. It's like that was an excuse. I think that the headlines were drawn to to as part of the marketing campaign to like create a controversy, a false controversy, like a false flag controversy to get people to like be like, oh, what the fuck? Like I think that because there's that saying, there's no such thing as bad press. Yeah. I think that was a big part of it. But I think like for the real hardcore people out there, or not even hardcore, that's not the right word, but just like the real critics out there are not as much concerned about whether gender swapping or like race swapping. It's not that. It's more inserting. It's more about the the defamation and destruction of the source material to change it for something completely different. Like, you know, you go to McDonald's, a known brand, you want to get a cheeseburger plain. That's what you get. You want cheese. It's like you go to any McDonald's on fucking planet Earth.
Yeah.
You're going to get the same thing. I'm sure in some places it's better than others. I mean, I know there's like, you know, one in cheeseburger in Carlsbad. It's not the same cheeseburger as fucking Barstow, California. But nevertheless, like you can expect if you go to a fucking McDonald's, you're going to get the same cheeseburger.
Yeah.
This is a brand. This is a product. This is a movie. Like when you go see fucking Little Mermaid or you go see Snow White, you're kind of expecting a certain thing from that. And I think part of what these marketing people are doing, and maybe it's not just marketing, but whoever the fuck it is, the producers, you know, handlers are altering the cheeseburger in such a way that it's like you go to like, oh yeah, fucking new McDonald's. I'm gonna fucking get this cheeseburger. McDonald's in my town. Oh my God, Mom, there's a McDonald's in my town. And you go to that fucking McDonald's and you get that cheeseburger and it's like maybe like genetically grown fucking like lab grown like soy meat with like what, you know, like in a lettuce wrap or some bullshit. And you're just like, what the fuck is this? And then you're like, this isn't a cheeseburger. And they'll be like, yeah, it's a cheese. What? You're racist?
Yeah,
you,
right.
You think this is a cheese? I think that analogy perfectly describes it.
Sure. Yeah, and the intentions are wrong, I think, in some of them. But I don't think that's the case with Little Mermaid. But
that's good to know.
From what I've seen from other stuff, yeah, of course, there's this massive, whatever you'd call it, not an agenda, but there's a massive thing. It's the Colin Hanks is trying to catch up with culture, and they're just so far behind. They're misreading. Like one thing that people said, they're like, oh, this is what you want, so we're going to do that. It's like, that's not what we fucking meant when we said that. So they're just so reactive, and they're so like separated from reality that they don't really comprehend, especially because they're probably, most of them are white men who have been fine for their whole lives, like financially, and haven't had to worry about shit, so they can't really understand. It's hard for anybody to understand anybody who from a different culture, you know, walking in somebody else's shoes. It's very difficult for anybody to do that. So for somebody who's making a judgment call on a movie based on what they think maybe this new culture trend or new enlightenment is doing, they're just always playing catch up, and they're always going to be wrong unless it comes from like a genuine place, which I kind of feel like Little Mermaid did, because they didn't do anything besides give the main actor, whoever they were, they're going to get the part regardless of what color their skin is. And I think that's the only thing that some people are going to get mad about that, but I don't think the intention there was. It's
okay to make people mad. Like it's okay to like stir the pot.
Yeah, it just does it make money? But just like what goes back to, why did it cost $200 and something million? Like it looks great, like I said, but even Avatar 2 didn't cost that much money.
No, it cost way more than that.
Did it? Okay. All right.
Avatar 2 is on a whole nother scale.
But it cost more than Titanic. It cost more than
Well,
Alien.
Okay, another reference to this issue, which again is Disney, is the Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Have you seen this yet?
I haven't. Have you?
I have.
Okay. I've heard not great. Unfortunately, not great things.
See, Sim, that's a seal. So, okay, so this is perfect conversation here, because I haven't seen Little Mermaid. You haven't seen Indiana Jones, and vice versa. But I did see it, and I'll tell you what, I had my expectations about it. I was like, I don't know. Like, I heard about this movie.
In the theater you saw it?
No.
Okay.
I did not see it in theaters. But it turned out to be a much better movie than I expected it to be. Really did. It was like far superior to the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
How could
far
it not?
superior. How could it not?
This podcast is gonna be far superior to that fucking
I know, but that's what I was worried about. I was worried it was going to be shit, and it wasn't shit. It was not shit. But there are similarities with Little Mermaid in the sense that the movie did not do well in the box office. And the amount of money that went into the budget compared to the turnover just like horrible. And it was like over $300 million, like $360 million to make this movie. But they're saying,
make Indiana Jones?
yeah, and it was
How?
because like almost like half or at least a third of that budget went to the marketing. And like,
And
what
it failed
kind of marketing?
miserably.
Yeah, and like, let's go over a couple things. Why are we marketing Indiana Jones? Everyone knows Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And where did that marketing go to? Like, to me, it seems like a fucking Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
They're skimming the fucking money, but this, the CGI wasn't great.
Okay.
But I mean, it was okay, but it had a good look.
How was the writing okay? Like,
The writing was okay. It was okay. I mean, it wasn't bad.
okay.
There were some cringy moments in there, I thought. But you know what? It wasn't bad enough for me to just dismiss the movie altogether. It was kind of like what Kingdom of the Crystal Skull should have been. To me, I think now that we're talking about it, it's like this was like let's go back and remake, like the taste of the do-over. The taste of the Crystal Skull left in my mouth was horrible. Let's like get a palate cleanser.
2008 was that or 9?
9, I think 8 or 9.
Been long
Might have
enough
been
that
8.
people are like maybe people forgot about that.
Yeah, right.
Just make a new one.
Yeah, but the budgeting and because a big part of the money also went into like the deep fake, like CGI. They like had to make Harrison Ford look younger.
Oh,
There was a lot of time travel shit going on.
Okay.
Dial of Destiny, without giving too many spoiler alerts, has a lot to do with like going back in time. There's a lot of time jumping. And there were some it's like and there could have been some message things in there, but ultimately it was a good movie. And the only reason I brought it up was just because the amount of money that went into the marketing of this movie, essentially a movie that there was no demand for.
That's a good point.
And I think maybe that goes for Little Mermaid as well, like, or any of these Disney remakes.
Yeah, there's no one out there calling for like we're ready for a new.
We need another indie.
You're right. You're
So,
right.
like,
That's a good point.
So why are they spending all this money?
So are you saying that there's a conspiracy? Marketing just means
I think that they're
just pretending to put $100 million in marketing, but really they're putting it in their pocket. Like, we didn't put all this money into marketing. We don't understand why nobody came to see the movie.
Well, look at the
Meanwhile-
writer's strike. Look at the writer's strike and the actor strike right now. A big part of the reason that strike is happening is because of the way that the streaming services are happening. And back in the day, you would sign on to a movie and you would get X amount of money that would be upfront for working on that movie. But then a big part of the contract is like, okay, there's going to be DVD sales. There's going to be, like it's going to be on AMC. It's going to be on TNT. We're going to have it on ABC. Like they're going to show this movies and you're going to get residuals over time.
Everything's going to be tracked. Like all the view, like the everybody in theater, there's a record of everybody buying a ticket. There's a record of everybody buying DVDs.
Yep.
So there's data that tells you how much money you earn depending on your contract, whereas as with streaming they hide the data.
They hide the data and they make these the producers and the streaming contractors like at Netflix and Hulu and all these other services, the tech companies basically, they make these fucking sweetheart deals where they're like, we're gonna give you Harrison Ford, or maybe not Harrison Ford, like whoever, whoever the fuck, we're going to give you $100 million right now. It's like a Ponzi scheme. $100 million. No. $100 million right now. We're going to give it to you right now. And it's going to be great. And then you're just like, cha-ching, you get the dollar signs in your head and then you sign it. But the promise is unfulfilled. There's no guarantee that this movie is going to do well when it streams, or this show is going to do well when it streams. So that's why you have a lot of these miniseries popping up. And when the fucking, like, I feel like ultimately it results in these big projects that get overbloated budgets where everyone's making a lot of money real quick because of the hype.
Yeah.
But then when the movie is released, it's like, you know, like no one wanted to see this and it's not going to get a lot of money. And then the people who get fucked is everybody else.
The artists.
The artists.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
literally everyone below the line
Yeah.
gets completely fucked.
Oops, sorry. Projections were wrong, you know, I guess.
But you know, but I got my mansion up in the fucking Maui or whatever. You know? So like
Yeah, that does sound like a Ponzi scheme when you put it that way.
yeah, I think that's why everyone's on strike right now.
Yeah.
Hollywood's fucking itself in the ass hardcore.
As predicted by us.
Yes.
Well,
fantastic.
I hope that's the thing about the strike right now is that it needed to happen, obviously, and I'm hoping that it's it's going to come to a head and something's going to need to break one way or the other, and it's either going to go full bore Colin Hanks and they're going to make all the 99% of the money and all the artists are going to have to deal with pennies, or finally the artists are going to get what they deserve. Because it seems like it's the two sides right now, at least from the propaganda that I'm hearing, is that both sides are not really budging. And it's going to need to go one way or the other. And these companies can only lose so much money, but it seems like they're willing to lose billions of dollars.
I feel like the producers are
they don't
happy
care.
to do this.
They're just like, we'll sit. I think
it's their intention.
It was Ron Perlman who responded to somebody who said, like, we heard one of the producers said, we'll just wait it out until these people start losing their homes.
Exactly.
And he was like, basically Ron Perlman he had to kind of recall his statement, but he was basically like, we know where these motherfuckers live, bro. Like, you're gonna say that shit to us? We know where you fucking live. So almost like threatening them. But then he came back and I was like, well, I didn't mean that we're gonna murder them. But he kind of did. But I mean, that's kind of it's gonna, like, at a certain point, you know, not 99% of the people who are striking are not millionaires, right? You got Bryan Cranston out there and Ron Perlman, like, championing the man, but they are, because they're people of the union and they seem like good people, but most of the people out there literally are living paycheck to paycheck, even if they have a bunch of writing credits or acting credits. So I mean, you're fucking with people's livelihoods, and it's happening with hotels as well. Like the hotel I used to work at, they went on strike. I keep getting these text alerts for all these other hotels that are going on strike. Like, it's a very trendy thing right now to go on strike, as well as it should be. And I'm just really hoping, as I've been fortunate enough that most things have worked out in my life for me, that as soon as I'm qualified enough to be making screenplays that sell, it'll be right when all this shit gets settled and all the studios will be craving new, good, unique, original stories that they want to tell. And they'll be willing to compensate the artists for what they're doing. So that's kind of what I'm trying to surf the wave right now of, like, I'm not in the guild, but I'm hoping that as soon as we get to the other side of this, or we just have to let these old studios just die and basically do like Matt Damon and Ben Affleck and start your own studio, or just go with smaller studios and eventually these old studios will just be made with AI stuff or bullshit or movies that nobody wants to see, and they're just going to fuck themselves in the ass and cease to exist.
I think that's what's coming.
Yeah.
And you know what? Look at, I mean, the irony, I don't know what other word could describe this, but the best winner, the best picture of the year this year was Everything Everywhere All at Once. This was essentially an indie film. Mm-hmm. This was a A24 film, and it was very abstract, very wild and weird. Not your fucking, like, I bet you Martin Scorsese was sitting there being like, what the fuck? Like, they gave this film Best Picture of the Year and Best Director of the Year. Like, they gave this movie. I've been making fucking weird ass movies all my life, and they wouldn't give it to me because I wouldn't follow the rules.
Yeah.
And then they're like, all of a sudden they're like, hey, this film broke all the rules. Let's give it to these guys. It's like what the fuck? But I remember thinking this when we were in film school together, that just it must have been somebody's teacher that brought this up, that it was the trend during the late 50s and early 60s. The films that were being made by Hollywood were very unsuccessful, big time flops, hand over fist. All the musicals, all the westerns, they just kept making these big budget, like, this is what we know what sells kind of shit. And they weren't selling anything. And then you get this amazing revolution, this renaissance of filmmaking and cinematic history where you get the greats that we know of today. You get Stanley Kubrick, you get Francis Ford Coppola, you get Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, Martin Scorsese, the list goes on. Like, these are the ones that now are the old guard. I mean, you got the Anakin Skywalker who turns into Darth Vader. It's like now we're dealing with they're the ones that are the gatekeepers. Yeah. But nonetheless, that's a great lesson because we're in the exact same situation right now with the superhero movies and with the big, the remakes, these big time Hollywood budget movies that just no one fucking wants to see anymore. Like the superhero fatigue. Mm-hmm. There's the new, what's the new Marvel movie coming out that you're really excited for? Can't answer that question, can you? Because no one gives a fuck.
Yeah.
I've
been given a fuck for at least 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, Endgame is one of the top grossing films of all time.
Well, that was what? Oh, that was within the last 5 years, right?
Yeah, 6 years, was it 2019?
That's 2019. Okay, so 4 years ago. So yeah, I cared about that one, but but since then,
no, because that was they completed the saga, and also
I kind of wanted to see. I was excited for the Thor movie, the Thor Love and Thunder, but then it was like.
Yeah. I mean, I was excited for a lot of them. I was excited for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
You're right.
I was excited for the Eternals.
Yeah.
I was excited for Aquaman, or not Aquaman, fucking Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Yeah. Which wasn't bad.
We liked that. We
did like that. It was just, I think, it's hard just to differentiate the beautiful memorial for Chadwick Boseman and the actual movie itself. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Like there were high points and there were low points. There were some good moments, like even like Black Widow. It's just like Endgame set such a high bar. Anyway, the whole idea is that we have this great opportunity right now that's very similar to what was happening at the end of the 50s and the beginning of the 1960s. It's not exactly the same, but it's very similar. And we have a big difference, the internet. Mm-hmm. We have the big difference is that we can make something, anybody can make something that's substantial, that can go viral, that's creative with virtually nothing. Mm-hmm. No money. You could just take your fucking cell phone and make the next big thing. Yeah. That's what is incredible. So it's almost like there's this really great opportunity similar to back then where we can bypass the studios, and the money will follow.
Yeah, of course, because that's what it always does.
Yeah.
But you're right. We can't, it would be naive to expect all of a sudden these old studios, these old dinosaurs to just get with the times and all of a sudden be like, oh yeah, we were wrong about that stuff and you guys deserve more money. Like that's just not in their nature, right? That's not how they became the way that they became. That's not how they became these massive studios and make billions of dollars a year. So yeah, you're right. We probably just need to do our own thing, as is usually always the case. But I remember hearing, I think it was George Lucas talking, but obviously he's part of that generation you were just talking about. Back then, they gave a lot of power to the artist. And it wasn't until they started making a lot of money that they all of a sudden started bringing in money people and finance people. Yep. And then these people started making the decisions. And that's kind of what started us on the path to where we are now. So, we just need to take the power back because that's where all the success came from. That's where all the innovations came from all those directors that you said, is because they could do what they wanted and they weren't thinking about the marketing and they weren't thinking about the audience. And that's what made these movies great, is that they were like pure, like we were talking about before, like personal movies, like movies that people really wanted to make. And they didn't necessarily I don't know, they weren't necessarily thinking about what the audience wanted. I think Rick Rubin says that a lot. Is like you can't think about the listener of the music. You have to make the music for yourself, and you have to make the movie for yourself. And you have to make the art from yourself. You can't think of it like I want to sell a book. Like listening to the Stephen King's book on tape, he talks about he's like, I never wrote one single word trying to sell it. I wrote these words because I wanted to tell a story. I didn't think about selling books.
Yeah.
And all these corporate people, all they're thinking about is how can I sell this product? How can I sell this movie? How can I do that? And the best movies and the best art always come from your heart and being like really, really honest and wanting to make a movie because you need to make a movie. Like all the directors talk about, like make a movie that you want to see and that you have to tell the story that you have to tell, and that's your
Sylvester
story.
Stallone, Rocky.
Yeah, exactly. All the successful ones are they come from a pure place, and all these movies that are coming out now, these big corporate movies are coming from some soulless place.
Yeah, no, it's just like let's, let's capitalize on what has already worked because we have to keep the money going.
Right.
We have a business to run,
a big business,
a lot of mouths to feed, and let's like keep doing that. We got to keep the lights on, and then also at the same time, I think to give them the benefit of the doubt, even these Barnhart. We'll get more into the Barnhart people soon. But
James Barnhart.
James
Barnhart.
These people also are doing everything they can to they know that these stories are relevant in this time, and they know that they can use them as a vehicle to get people excited, and it's good for kids, it's good for as escapism, like with the world we're living in.
Especially with how the world is now.
Yeah.
We need to escape.
Like who wants to go watch a fucking movie right now about
Oprah and The Rock?
Oprah and The Rock talking about how you should donate money to the fucking cause. Like
the last movie I'd ever want to watch.
Yeah. And I'm sure they're fucking making it right now. I'm sure we've seen it before already. And
yeah, exactly.
Like it's they're trying their best, but it's just we have this great opportunity to make something that's unique, that tells a story that's relevant and also edgy and controversial. Another aspect of this whole thing I thought was interesting was a lot of movies that were being made in the late 80s and especially during the 90s were movies that they knew would not do well. Like producers were gambling on these budgets and movies knowing they would not do well in the box office. Like 6 Days, 7 Nights, or You Got Mail. Random fucking movies that
I love You Got Mail.
Yeah, they're not going to do well in the box office, but we are going to make our money back in
Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan.
Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan on tape.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah, the rentals.
The rentals, the DVD sales, the tape sales, the watching it on TV, when people are home, let's put on TNT or
that's very true. TBS,
they were being more experimental and more risky with the kind of stories they were telling. They weren't trying so hard to get everybody to love this movie right here, right now in this fucking one movie. Everyone's going to come into this one little closed in air conditioned box and watch this fucking movie. They better like it and we're going to get them to love it. So they're going to say as many people as possible. Get as many people as possible. Fuck the fire laws and the fire, it's we're going to get everyone in here. It's no, they were like whatever. We know that in the long run, we could create a cult classic. They are not doing that right now. Hollywood's not doing that. They are just making
only sure things, or what they think is sure things.
A sure thing, it's throw fire on gasoline on a fire. They just want the thing to fucking ignite right away. They're not looking for the long, slow burn. They don't have the.
I don't think they understand that. I don't think they. That's not how their mind works. That's the corporate mind doesn't work that way. It's literally here now, make this money now, off of things that we can guarantee, like Tom Hanks is going to make X amount of money, Meg Ryan's going to make X amount of money. And yeah, and they need they're slaves to the numbers, right? So yeah, there's very minimal risks being taken by Disney, Paramount, whoever else the major studios are, and that's just where we've gotten. So yeah, but inevitable at this point.
As the great Barney McFly said, history is going to change. History is going to change. And I think, that's a good segue. History is going to change. I wanted to share with you this, we were talking earlier about audiobooks, and Audible. Maybe Audible will sponsor this podcast eventually one day. Brought to you by Audible.
We have audio in this podcast, which is like Audible.
Technically, it is Audible. But history is going to change. I'm listening to this book right now that my good friend, my brother Mac, shout out to Mac, suggested to me. It's called Weird Scenes from Inside the Canyon. This is a story about Laurel Canyon. And this opens up a can of worms, my friend, because number one, I think this is going to be the place I would love to go to do like a haunted tour, like around Halloween time.
Okay.
Get, like they do those like haunted fucking like ghost story tour. You get in the bus and they like take you on a trip through Laurel Canyon. Weird Scenes from Inside the Canyon is a story about the entire music scene that emerged from Los Angeles in Laurel Canyon in the late 1960s. You've got the Mamas and Papas, you've got the Byrds, you've got James Taylor, you've got Frank Zappa, you've got Jim Morrison and the Doors. And what's crazy is that, and that's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the artists, and Joni Mitchell and the singer-songwriters were involved in this fucking birth of the hippie scene, because most people, when they think of the hippie scene, they think of San Francisco, Haight-Ashbury, like the Peace, Love, Flower Child stuff. But that was after, or like an offshoot or a branch of what was going on at Laurel Canyon. You got Crosby, Stills, and Nash. You got Buffalo Springfield. Like all the classic songs that were the soundtrack of the fucking 60s came from this fucking place. And what's wild is that there was a military base, a military installation that was essentially the film studio for all of the military propaganda films that they ever made, right in the center of Laurel Canyon. Have you ever heard about this?
I don't think so.
In fact, Jared Leto lives in this building now.
Well, that makes sense.
He bought this building and lives in it as his home. But this is where they filmed all of the, a lot of the nuclear test footage you see where there's the house and the nuclear blast goes across it. Like they were doing nuclear tests and nuclear tests were real, but a lot of the footage that they were, showing the world, being like, look at what we can do, was filmed inside this building.
Okay.
Because at the time they didn't really have the nuclear arsenal that they did. And there was the arms race with Russia, and it was like, oh, well, we got to, make it look like we have a more significant arsenal than we do at the time. We don't want them to think that we're weak. There was this whole thing. And there's even a suspicion, John, that there was a special soundstage at this studio called Soundstage 237, where they filmed with Stanley Kubrick the shooting of the moon landing. Not to say that the moon landing, didn't happen, but that film in the One Small Step for Man, that was all done there. But anyway, you had this really strange military installation right in the middle of fucking the birth of the music scene. Laurel Canyon. Stanley Kubrick shot the moon landing scene in Laurel Canyon, Hollywood. That's like that shit mandala aside, that story still blows my fucking mind. That's wild. Opened my eyes to another conspiracy that I don't want to be true, but sadly I think it might be to some degree.
I wouldn't be surprised.
So as you hold the shining pillow, Well, I think this might be a good place to wrap up this podcast. For anyone that's been listening to this so far, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for going on this journey and being subjected to the nightmare that is the present moment of our current reality, and I impress upon you, as we are doing now, to make something positive out of it, to take this nightmare and make it extra scary, make it extra real, and remember the truth about this nightmare is that it's just a dream, and you can wake up from it, and ultimately you will wake up from it. That, to me, is the spiritual takeaway of Mandala, is that it's a goddamn nightmare, but the moment the movie's over, you're going to fucking wake up. You're going to wake up from that fucking nightmare, and you're going to want to go right back into that nightmare, watch it again, except now you can see the truth.
Yep. A fucking men.
A fucking men. John Allen.
Alex Lipton.
Any closing words?
No.
No. Good. I like that. Classic. Me neither. Thank you, everybody. We will see you on the next podcast. I really hope that you join us in the nightmare. Happy Halloween.
We have lost a whole civilization from our historical record. We are a species with amnesia.
So we're going to have to forgive universally and move to this creative moment as a species.
We, humans, are creating what is called the sixth mass extinction of life.
Peace comes from a different place. It starts by seeing within others and within ourselves that which is not selfish, but is brave and generous and idealistic